Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding the hearing. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. Just when things couldn't possibly get worse, the Congress distinguished itself at the end of the last Congress by passing a tax extenders bill that, among other things, included an extension of the wind production tax credit for 2.5 weeks. And you have just, and in that context, and understanding that context, in your answer to Senator Brown, you, the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America, described our tax code as broken and ridiculous. And there isn't any thinking person on this committee that doesn't agree with that characterization of the tax code. And you've been around here for a long time and know, I think, acquired a lot of wisdom over that period of time. And I think the people of Colorado, what they would like to know is, what are the conditions that are required to actually fix this tax code, to reform the tax code? What do we have to do to put this committee in the position to actually do the people's business, to not do this insanely minor and ridiculous legislating, but actually get to a place where we can fix this code?
Well, Senator,
and allow the private sector to compete in this global economy.
Senator, I couldn't agree more that short-term extenders are a terrible way to do business. For a company that at the beginning of 2014 wanted to know what their tax status would be, waiting till the last week of the year doesn't help you plan your business. So it's all retroactive for decisions that were made when people didn't know what the tax code would be. So it couldn't possibly have the incentive effect that it would have if it was a permanent tax law. We've proposed dealing with the extenders in the context of tax reform so that we pick the ones that should be made permanent, make them permanent, pay for them in the context of tax reform, and have a tax code that had a stability and certainty to it. I think the answer of what we have to do, we learned in 1986 what the answer on tax reform is. We have to work together, and we know there are going to be interests that oppose losing whatever special privilege they have, but on a bipartisan basis, say it's worth broadening the base, closing loopholes, lowering the rate, having an international system that makes us competitive, and if we do it together, we can get it done. You know, I am more optimistic than many because it just makes such profound sense to do it, and I also think that if we don't do it, it's going to lead to an economy where we see more companies doing things we don't like, and that's not a good outcome.
I want to thank the chairman for putting us in these working groups, because I think that at least presents a bipartisan, start for our efforts. I remember a principal of a charter school in my school district. I once asked them, you could hear a pin drop in this place. And I said, how do you create these conditions where you can actually get this done? And he said, I visualize the conflict in advance, and then when it comes, I know it's going to be there and we can get through it. And I think that's what we need to do on this issue. Well, it's not going to be easy to do, but we can do it.
And Senator, I've offered to both the chairman and to Senator Wyden that we look forward to working with the bipartisan working groups to help technically and with our ideas, and look forward to working.
Well, and I think there are a number of us on both sides of the aisle, my colleagues here today, that feel the same way. I wanted to ask you an education question, actually, too. The GAO found that in 2009, 1.5 million students failed to take a credit or a deduction for which they were eligible. And another study found that 1 in 4 taxpayers failed to take the maximum education tax benefit when they're eligible for multiple credits. So I was really pleased to see that the budget simplifies our system of education tax expenditures and makes the American Opportunity Credit more refundable. I wonder whether you could discuss some of the limitations of the current patchwork of credits and deductions in more detail, and also describe how simplification and better targeting might actually increase overall college affordability.
Senator, we share the concern that the current array of patchwork of benefits, tax benefits, and grants makes it very difficult for a family to take full advantage of everything that's available to them. One of the reasons that we put together this approach was to simplify it, to make it so that families would understand what it is that they have available and to take it into account. We've consolidated the education tax credits into an expanded AOTC. We've simplified taxes for Pell Grant recipients. We have improved reporting of tuition and related expenses for scholarships part of this is that the reporting is more straightforward. It will be easier. We've repealed the student loan interest deduction for new students, but allowed debt forgiveness to be excluded from income. And we've reduced the tax benefits of education savings accounts we've said we're not going to do that, so I take that back.
And I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman, but I also want to call your attention, Mr. Secretary, to a bill that Senator Alexander and I have that would reduce the questions on the financial aid form, the FAFSA form, from 108 questions to 2 questions. I think that would align with the work that you're trying to do, and I hope you're paying some attention to that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.